Hi everyone, and welcome to our iProspect Insight Lab on the future of marketing data in a privacy-conscious world. My name is Christina Malcolm. I'm the Senior Director of Paid Search based in the New York iProspect office.
And my name is Julia Smith. I'm a Director of Data Science and Analytics, also based in the New York office.
And we are going to be talking to you today about data. But before we delve into some of the challenges and changes of this new focus on data privacy, we wanted to touch on a few fun brands that are using data in snazzy ways. Because data is cool. There are some big brands here, some rather trendy brands here, and some of my favorites I've called out at the top who are really building or changing their businesses based on data. So Away Luggage use customer feedback data to actually create their new luggage products from scratch. Duolingo, one of my favorite apps, is a language learning program which I've been using to learn Spanish. Duolingo is really cool because it looks at your progress and mini test results and then applies AI and machine learning to model where the gaps are for me. It shows me new words, grammar options, and learning techniques, especially for me. Sadly, no amount of AI is able to improve my beginner Spanish. And then, of course, ADP, the trusty payroll provider, after 50 years have created a brand new self-service DIY payroll option, all online. This is huge. It's a completely new product built on data insights and has allowed them to pivot to a brand new revenue stream. So there's a lot of interesting and well-known companies using data in innovative ways. But this is not new, and data has been a hot word for years. I remember one of my first ever trips to Google London, and they were talking about this idea of big data all those hundreds of years ago. So what's changing? Well, right now, businesses that don't keep up with the consumer focus on data privacy and transparency, they'll be left behind. Data, like so many parts of marketing, has shifted over time. First, we saw this data as a gateway, as driving meaningful social and content options. Then we understood that data could be used to unlock personalization and having engaging conversations and experiences. And now privacy. This has become central. Consumers are gaining control in a new way, a way focused on their personal data. And we need to appreciate this and not see it as a negative, but actually as a way of building trust. So while we understand data unlocks businesses and steers decision-making, everything we do as marketers, whether you work for a brand, an agency, or a partner, it will always be and always has been about the consumer. And if consumers want changes to help protect their own data and privacy, we have to adapt and respect that. So today, we're going to walk through this changing world of data in 3 parts. Firstly, we're going to talk to you about what you need to know about these changing privacy policies. We'll walk through the new laws, the new browser changes, and what they mean for us as marketers. Next, we'll walk through the current ways you are using and activating your marketing data currently. There will be some big decisions here based on the changing privacy policies, the so-called walled gardens, and you as marketers will need to decide where your priorities lie in terms of activations, targeting, and measurement. Finally, in our last section, we'll look ahead and try to understand a world 2 or 3 years from now, where customer lifetime value, multi-touch attribution, and good old media mix modeling fit into growth plans. So let's start with what you need to know as marketers. The bottom line is your data is changing. So let's take a little look back, not too far. So a recent timeline shows the multiple changes over the past couple of years that highlight this new consumer demand for improved privacy regulations. The GDPR in Europe and now the CCPA this year, which impacts California amongst all other US states, sets legal stipulations and holds brands, platforms, and agencies all to be transparent with their data. It's now against the law to not take note of privacy regulations. And outside of these regulations, browsers that we all use every day to get online, like Apple Safari, Mozilla, and now Chrome, have changed their functionalities to prohibit user data measurement, targeting, and sharing of third-party cookies. This means alongside the law, it is now simply not possible to use data in the same way that we are currently. And this last one, this is the biggie. Within a couple of years, Chrome is aiming to restrict any third-party cookies. This date could change given existing pressure right now, but ultimately this means no more cross-site tracking, no more third-party measurement sharing, and no more cookie-based remarketing. Instead, we'll have to focus only on what users want to share with us directly. So To really move forward in this data privacy world, we need to understand these main changes and what they mean for us. So firstly, on the left here, you've got the regulatory policies, the GDPR and CCPA that I've just mentioned. They aim to put consumers first. And let's be clear, I'm not a legal specialist and can't provide legal advice, hence that wee disclaimer that now appears on the bottom left there. Ultimately, though, these laws aim to ensure that any sites online must allow people to opt out or in of their data being sold. They also allow users the option to access personal data and can request companies to delete their data too. So this means that brands must set up their sites, their internal processes, and really a lot of their data infrastructure to abide by these policies and avoid persecution. And of course, on the right, the browsers, how we actually get online. Chrome, with 2/3 of the global browser market share, and Safari being the top iPhone browser of choice, are lowering the options to track users. Third-party cookies, which are a crucial method of retargeting and building up user information across sites, will soon be minimal. This is a game changer for many big brands and platforms who have based their digital marketing performance on cookie-based engagements. Paid search, display, social affiliates, and all sorts of pixel-based remarketing will soon begin to dissolve. This means that brands must make changes and set up their existing cookies to be first-party where possible, and to also invest in alternative first-party data options like CRM, email, or signed-in users based on retargeting. And we'll talk about that in just a second. So that was a lot, and we could talk through the intricacies and the impact of these big data privacy changes for a long time. But for now, here's what you need to know. There's a regulation shift. Get your legal team involved to ensure you are legally compliant and have site changes and internal infrastructure adhere to the new privacy laws. There's also a browser shift. Audit your website, tags, pixels, cookies, whatever you want to call them. Just make sure that they're labeled correctly and understand that any third-party cookies will be obsolete soon. And of course, there's an overall privacy targeting shift. So lean into other options like signed-in user targeting, CRM, first-party user ID engagements, and build robust non-cookie-based marketing options. These need-to-knows will help fuel the way you currently and in the future act on the marketing data you have.
So now that we're on the same page about those two major shifts that are putting privacy front and center, let's consider the impact it will have on our marketing activations. And the core question we're really asking here is my existing approach future-proof? And while that really hinges on what you're using the data for, the business cases we open with have all benefited from robust data strategy roadmaps to make best use of the signals generated by their consumer base. If we translate that into building blocks, we know that there are broad but necessary steps required to build the pipes and enable these types of activations. First, we know marketing generates some amalgamation of data from disparate platforms. And in terms of measurement at this stage, all we have available is that delivery validation from each source to answer diagnostic questions. Pretty straightforward, right? Next, by collating and warehousing these data streams, we facilitate cross-channel reporting, i.e. media was activated and we can address how tactical changes made within each component of the program impacted performance. So we're getting there, right? Then we look to develop a more efficient cross-channel media activation by leveraging additional data sources to mine the most valuable audiences. From a measurement perspective, that means success can be based on incremental returns against those high-value audiences. And this is really central to today's conversation. And beyond that, the most robust analytics programs seek to reconcile all this information at the person level to provide a truly personalized experience with the brand and to build a relationship with customers. From a measurement perspective, this identity resolution enables measurement based on those aggregate paths to conversion, which is known as multi-touch attribution, or big buzzword here, MTA. So starting from the left, you are likely already warehousing your data or planning to in order to expedite reporting and more easily assess cause-effect of tactical changes to your programs, known as the enablement phase. What we're going to zoom in on today's presentation is how the rules of the game are expected to change as your organization ascends these building blocks, and specifically how the later phases, where we are using either audience or person level identifiers, will be impacted. So by the end, you'll be armed with a broad understanding of the changing landscape to make informed business decisions. And that all starts with an understanding of how data about consumers is collected in the first place, which can be boiled down to these sources. Marketers own their first-party CRM data, which is verifiably linked to a single individual. And this facilitates modeling and lookalikes, but doesn't necessarily solve for unknown users that haven't yet interacted with the brand. In those cases, a few additional methodologies have filled the gap. Third-party or cross-site cookies are currently able to track an individual beyond your site to provide insight into other browsing habits, or fingerprinting, which has been used to identify consumers based on a concatenation of relatively unique browser information. And then there's the walled gardens. Logins here, which we are calling closed ecosystems, these are those giant media conglomerates such as Facebook, Google, Amazon, Apple. They have a number of people logged in at any one time and are generating a wealth of behavioral signals. As Christine has covered, privacy regulation limits cross-site cookies, and similarly, browsers will prevent fingerprinting, which means marketers can have the most confidence in the long-term usability of their own first-party data, as well as data leveraged in partnership with a closed ecosystem.
So knowing there will now be two broad paths to activation, as Julia's just showed, let's look at these and start firstly at this first-party infrastructure approach on the left. This is really shoring up your first-party data in place of existing cookie-based programs, which really most of us could benefit from. We're talking CRM activity, we're talking data storage, we're talking manipulation, warehousing, modeling. All in all, this is about building and cultivating rich sources and processes based on the data you as a company collect with people. So brands that are big on encouraging loyalty logins, buying online with your email, in-store experience signups, or even just good old personal details on lead forms. These brands that are collecting user identifiers can use this data, play with it, segment it, model it, analyze it, and work with partners to activate across media platforms and channels like display, social, paid search, all without any third-party cookies. So me, Christina, as a practitioner, can activate and target these users with a mix of different partners and really have that one-on-one targeting opportunity still. Julia, from an analytics point of view, can dig into the data and reporting and create those groovy bespoke algorithms or models based on what she is seeing. In this first-party infrastructure approach, as you learn about your audience, you can refine your media, and you can pass those known user lists between customer data platforms and demand-side platforms, which is more manual, that allows you greater control of your data. It's techy and it demands analytics resources and can be costly, but it's hugely beneficial to big brands who have and need a lot of customer data for goals like driving engagement over time, nurturing long selling cycles, or having repeat customers. Plus, we think it provides the best foundation for understanding the data you currently own in a truly compliant way before making other big database decisions. So, let's look at this in action with an example of a large clothing brand who really understood their existing customers were key to driving their business forward. They asked us at iProspect to create a long-term strategy for their own first-party data, which would decrease the reliance on third-party tracking and audiences. Partnering with a big customer data platform, or CDP, we helped this brand set up a long-term audience nurture cycle. First, the audience technology platform helped ensure their first-party infrastructure and CRM was in order and segmented. From there, M1, our identity and data platform, was used to build lookalikes based on different attributes. Then we were able to activate against these lookalike audiences across Instagram, influencer videos, Facebook, and news sites with loads of different creative products and options in different order to see what resonated best. Next, when users went to the site, they were served a personalized user experience on the brand website and were incentivized to join the loyalty scheme. This, of course, then helped enrich the existing first-party data set and CRM, but also allowed them to digest, analyze, and report how potential and new customers act. Overall, we helped this brand build their own solution and control all the levers of their customer journey and growth. So we've looked at that first-party infrastructure approach, but we also need to look at the second closed ecosystem approach, because this is key for many marketers too, and it has its own set of benefits. This approach is really what many refer to as the walled garden route. Brands can lean into Google or Amazon or Facebook's fancy data sets and ease of activation and really help increase the value of that media partnership. Generally, these are based on signed-in users within their platform matching to the details in your similar consumer base. So using Google as an example, in exchange for integrating your advertising data with their suite of products, so DCM, Google Analytics, DV360, brands can use Google's Ads Data Hub to facilitate measurement and activation through platform native DSP integrations. This example of a walled garden is often a more streamlined means of integrating your data while also maintaining compliance with those important privacy changes we mentioned, given that a chunk of that consumer PII responsibility also rests with them. A great example of this is with another strategic recommendation for a smaller brand this time. So this brand understood that they had some solid CRM data, but were not able to fully invest in a nurturing program or partner to grow that audience immediately. Instead, they're working this closed ecosystem approach and growing their business in this instance through the Google stack. So firstly, they upload their existing customer data into Google BigQuery, which is really just Google's big data warehouse platform. Here, they're able to cluster their audiences into segments. Let's say top spenders, returners, and my favorite, keen but mean audiences. What's cool is they're then able to look up similarities across Google's own data and pick out key similar attributes within those segments. So maybe men aged 40 plus, or in market for dating services, or recently moved house, or affinity to boating or sailing. Who knows, maybe all four. Anyway, it's great because we can apply both the CRM and the new Google-owned audiences to existing Google marketing campaigns. Yes, on search where I live, but also on display in YouTube and Google-owned formats. From there, we can push investment in real time by looking at Google's performance data. So bid adjustments and multipliers, separate new customer-only campaigns, really just optimizing on what we see is working well. A cool way to use a smaller set of brand-owned CRM data and be smart with marketing dollars. Yes, this approach helps retain existing customers, but it also helps find a completely new user set that we can now start to engage with. So let's be frank here. Leaning in on closed ecosystems, these walled gardens, it can help. These big platforms make it easy to store, segment, build, apply, and optimize towards existing and new users as well. So, looking at those two examples and the new two broad paths to activation we've mentioned, it's time to act. Firstly, fingerprinting. It's a fun word, but don't go there. It's even less transparent to consumers and not a good foundation. Secondly, third-party cookies are being diminished. We said it before and we'll say it again. Investigate ways to replace your third-party marketing efforts. Instead, assess your strategy. By understanding the current two broad path options and deciding what's best for your program, you'll be able to grow your business in a consumer-friendly way.
And it's this growth stage that we really want to focus in on for the final segment of our talk, which means gearing up to make some long-term decisions about your MarTech infrastructure. Now, having gone through the two major ways to activate moving forward, you might be considering if one or more is advantageous for your brand. So let's look at it through these lenses. Is there a strong advantage in activating against individual consumers, or would LTV-powered audience-first strategies fit the bill? Is transparency into matching and modeling methodology a top priority, or is a less transparent approach acceptable if it meant deeper insights into those lesser-known target audiences? And is the macro view of most activity more important to track user journeys, or would a zoomed-in view to select media partners within their closed ecosystems have a larger impact for your media plan? And lastly, is being the primary owner and operator of the platform a priority relative to sharing information with an existing partner? So as an analytics professional, I'm actually not seeing this as one or the other, so to speak, but rather a better handle on your first-party data will enable you to make more informed decisions about what is needed from a closed ecosystem down the line. So knowing that, let's dig into the left-hand option a bit more. Again, speaking from an analytics perspective, I'm most concerned with having the information required to answer key business decisions. And the way that's done is by building reliable data pipelines. Going back to that building block concept, increasing levels of data maturity requires integration with a wider set of tools, from media platforms and brand sites to data warehouses and storage to audience integrations, and finally, the platforms that reconcile that information ideally down to an individual. And what we want to hone in on are those components of your MarTech stack that will be most impacted by everything we've talked through today. So with the inability to track cross-site, we know view-through visibility will change, along with the ability to pass through that same impression or log-level detail between many of the closed ecosystems. I know that's a lot of verbiage, so what will be the tangible impact to your analytics roadmap as these visibility gaps crop up? Well, first and foremost, difficulty reconciling impressions to a single individual will have the largest impact on MTA as we know it. Again, this is due to those regulatory and browser changes that will make it harder to track an individual's exposure to media, so the underlying paths to conversion will be murky. Let's work backwards from there. Our case studies are showing strong initial returns from lifetime value-based audience approaches, whether by cultivating this information from a strong first-party engagement strategy or reconciling information at the audience level using those walled garden signals. So given data availability, we anticipate that LTV modeling will likely become the most viable optimization option moving forward. Additionally, tried and true budget management tools such as media mix modeling will see a resurgence. These models use aggregated spend and impression volumes to solve for each tactic's contribution to business objectives. And this type of aggregated data will not be impacted by new regulation. Even better, data used for media mix modeling can be collated at a significantly lower cost for brands earlier in their data journey or just looking for a future-proof measurement strategy. So we'll leave you with this. Regardless of how you decide to approach data-driven activations and measurement in this changing landscape, brands can benefit from shoring up their engagement strategy to cultivate rich first-party data sets in order to decrease reliance on third-party data and audiences. Beyond that, deciding to partner with one or more closed ecosystem for their own ID resolution and the passback of high-value audiences may be worthwhile for brands that are both comfortable sharing their first-party data and are already relying heavily on components of those ecosystems, so would benefit from that more turnkey integration. Just know that the choices you make now will heavily impact those long-term modeling projects you plan for and your eventual source of truth. However, there are ways to generate efficiencies no matter which path is chosen.
So we've covered a lot in our 3 stages of the future of marketing data in a privacy-conscious world. First, compliance is essential. You need to know the low-hanging fruit for legal compliance and those major browser shifts, and the need to get your own brand's first-party data in order. Next, get a thorough understanding of how these impact your existing activation strategy. It'll likely be changing over the next couple of years. Long-term, figure out what will grow your business, whether it's first-party infrastructure option or a closed ecosystem approach or both. Understand your data and continue to do groovy things like MMM, customer lifetime value, and attribution to help future-proof and build your brand. Thank you so much for your time. You have our contact details just here, so let us know your thoughts and any questions.